This week, Javvad Malik from AlienVault joins us on the show, as well as Faru Mavatuna from NetSparker. In our stories, who's publishing NSA and CIA secrets and why? If anyone wants to shed some light on that or hear us make up our reasons why, that'll be fun. There was a breach at Sabre Corp. NIST password guidelines. Wait till you guys hear that and gals hear that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Remotely controlling industrial robots. Don't trust OAuth. I'm sure no one has heard about the Google OAuth phishing campaign. How to do a denial of service attack on your own YouTube channel. I can talk about that with explicit authority. In that arena, detecting PowerShell with heat maps. Can't wait to hear about that one. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Brought to you by IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Access over 2,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video content live and on demand for a free 7-day trial and 30% off the lifetime of your account. Visit itpro.tv/Security Weekly and use the code SW30. Onapsis is the leading provider of solutions to protect ERP systems from cyber attacks. Customers can secure their SAP and Oracle business-critical platforms from espionage, sabotage, and financial fraud risks. Visit them on the web at onapsis.com. Has your network been breached? Cybereason can help you answer this question. Cybereason products hunt for threats within your network and eliminate them in real time. To Cybereason, real time means within seconds. Founded by former military hackers who don't play by the rules, they've built this experience into their platform. Harness ingenuity and imagination, not just code, to defeat attackers. Cybereason. Disrupt the adversary and let the hunt begin. Endgame automates the hunt for both known and never-before-seen adversaries in enterprise networks. Built on unique knowledge on the adversary's tools, techniques, and tactics, Endgame's centrally managed agent prevents, detects, and responds to advanced adversaries in the earliest stages of the kill chain without prior knowledge. Endgame. Automate the hunt.
And welcome to the show! But first, today is National Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And here's our host, Paul Asadori.
That's all I get? I don't get any kind of witty...
The force
funny?
is strong with this one. Or not.
That's better.
Paul Asadorian.
This one and this one.
Holy shit, we're doing a podcast. Welcome.
When did that happen?
How did that happen?
Episode number 1. No
Wow.
shit.
Wow. This is exciting. Larry Pesci is here with me in studio.
Yes.
Sharing some fine cocktails.
Absolutely.
These are pretty good. It's not my best old-fashioned.
But more importantly is that there's these like new
It's the glassware.
glassware.
It's got our logo on it.
Shall we play a game?
It's
Absolutely.
yes.
Let's call it a podcast.
We're going to play some Ask Grabby Grabby a little later. It's going to be a great time. Fun is going to be had by all. Whether you go first or second, you always have fun.
I'm going to need another drink.
Playing Ask Grabby Grabby. Speaking of Ask Grabby Grabby, it's Joff Grabby Grabby. Well, what was your nickname?
Jafire.
That's right. Yeah, I have a brand new nickname given to us by the Security Weekly listener. I don't remember the name, but probably better if we don't say it. But it is Jafire.
Jafire. Welcome, Jafire, to the show. Joff, what are you doing these days at Black Hills Information Security?
Good God.
Well, I am pen testing and writing code as I normally do. I've actually been inventing some interesting new methods to do evasion of whitelist application whitelisting. Sorry, and also teaching for SANS on a regular basis, which is coming up. In fact, we have SANS Sec 573 in Northern Virginia coming up on May 21st next month. No, this month now. It's May. May the 4th be with you.
We need to learn how to write Python without locking ourselves out of our YouTube channel. Can you help us with that?
Yeah, I can probably help you with that. I mean, by DOSing YouTube, you might have started the Google worm. Who knows?
Who knows? More on that later.
Rumor.
Mr. Carlos Perez is here with us, wearing his black hat from Tenable Network Security, the lead director of reverse engineering, for Tenable Network Security. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul. Happy to be here.
You've been stated you were busy looking into some vulnerability with Intel AMT, so we hope to get some details on that. That was a big story this week. And there's been a little I covered it on Tuesday on Hack Naked News, and then as I read, there's like controversy over severity and stuff. So hopefully, I don't know how much you can share, Carlos. I don't want to get you in trouble at your day job, but.
Don't worry. As long as I don't really reveal how to exploit it, like we found out on day one, we're okay.
Okay. I'm sure our listeners would love to know, but we'll just have to wait and see. Announcements. Do we have announcements? There's no. Wild West Hackin' Fest. Isn't it? Are you going? Who's going? Joff, you're going, right?
Absolutely, I'm going, and I'm slated to speak. I don't know what I'm going to speak about.
I know. I got a speaking slot. I don't know what I'm going to speak about either.
I am supposed to be going. I have a speaking slot, and life may be conspiring against me, but I need to figure that out fairly soon, given that.
Oh,
it's not
Larry, we'd really love to see you.
Yeah,
it's going to be such a great time.
No, I need to try to make it, but
you should just go.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do the miserable travel to get there, you have to do the miserable travel to get there, because it'll just make our experience that much more enjoyable when we're there together.
Yeah.
And then we won't be as miserable about going home, because we know that each of us will have the miserable travel going home.
Absolutely.
That's what I think.
Oh, yeah.
Did you book your flights already?
I did. My flights are already booked, yeah.
Okay, well, you'll have to send me your itinerary, see if I can get on the same flights.
Talk to Sam, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't book it. Sam booked it.
Your people booked it.
I didn't do it.
He's like, I've got people for that.
God damn it, I'm a director and I still have to book my own travel.
Damn it, you're going to work on that, dude.
It's okay, I'd rather book my own travel, actually, because then I get what I want, not what someone else wants.
This is true. But Sam does a great job, so thanks, Sam. Sam's next door. She's awesome, as is all of our staff,
Absolutely.
all three of them graduated college and walked and had a ceremony this past weekend. So we had cake
that's
for them and
fantastic.
stuff.
Well,
so.
actually, the cake's still in the other room. I haven't.
After the show, we'll have some. Nice. We'll have some cake, and they got a Mac Pro, which is, I mean, that's what better gift could you ask?
When they have to share it.
They do have to share. I can only afford one.
Wow. It's like you get to share the fast computer for porn now.
That's right. That's right.
Had my own in college. God.
So visit wildwesthackinfest.com. That's HACKIN.com. So you can go to a conference with Larry, myself, Joff, and many others from the security community. There's going to be like hacking lab. John has like a IoT hacking lab. He's got a software-defined radio hacking lab. There's going to be all kinds of fun stuff going on in South Dakota. So make sure that you register today. I want to introduce our very special guest for this evening. Someone who I haven't spoken with, albeit virtually. Well, I've spoken to him virtually, but now we can actually like see each other, which is awesome. And he works for AlienVault. He is the security advocate for AlienVault. Javvad Malik is here with us. Javvad, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here.
Love your accent. I was one of the reasons why I couldn't wait for you to come on the show. Your accent is just so awesome.
Warning, man crush incoming.
Well, you realize it's all an act. My real accent sounds nothing like this, but it's worked well for me so far. I actually live in South Dakota.
Yeah.
That
explains so much.
I live in Australia, yeah.
Well, that would make sense, Job. But what have you been up to? Now, you're still doing your blog thing, and that's just like your kind of hobby kind of thing, right? You're still doing, what is your blog?
So, yeah, I still do my blog thing, and it kind of like bleeds into what I do at AlienVault as well. So, I suppose being an advocate, which is a title I opted for because I don't like the evangelist title.
Oh, thanks for that. I carried the evangelist title for quite some time, Javvad. So,
but eventually, ultimately, it's about spreading the good word, or being a storyteller, for lack of a better term.
Or a preacher? Do you consider yourself a preacher?
A storyteller.
A security storyteller. That would be a good title.
Yeah. I think that's probably more appropriate. So that's what I do on my own channel in a slightly different way on my YouTube videos and my blogging and all that. And I bring a lot of that same, albeit slightly grown up version to what I do at AlienVault as well.
And are you still largely doing the video thing on YouTube?
Yeah, I still, you know how it's like. Videos take so much time and effort to produce. So I never ever get to do as many videos as I like to do. But some weeks I'll get in a good groove and get stuff going. But it's still mainly the written blog that I do.
I gotcha. And you, your wife just had a baby.
That's right. My wife just had a baby. That's
Congratulations.
Baby number 4.
Thank you. So it's baby number 4 for you.
Yes, it's baby number 4.
Oh, so you're
wow.
Like, this is your first rodeo.
Veteran.
So if you look up if you do a search for my face, the definition comes up: sucker for punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a brave man. I'm going third, and I'm already snipping tubes.
Yeah. Now,
I got that done after 2.
Hold on, Joff. Your kids are older, but how many kids do you have, Joff? You're not over.
I was a sensible man and stopped at 2.
2, okay.
But my youngest has just been admitted to. I'm wearing the shirt, NC State.
Oh, congrats!
And so I've got a university-bound child now, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
I stopped at 2 and got the tube snipped, and neither one of them are headed to college for any time soon.
So, Javvad, what kind of things are you blogging about on your personal blog lately?
So on my personal blog, it really varies from day to day, and I suppose that's the advantage of your own personal blog. You can just talk about whatever takes your fancy that day. Oh, look, I saw someone step in a puddle that day. That's interesting.
Brilliant.
I find myself actually blogging less and less about more practitioner level or in-depth security stuff compared to what I used to. Nowadays, I find myself largely from feedback from the readers is actually blogging and writing for a wider audience. So broader IT or even non-security specialists. So I'll talk a lot in metaphors and fancy analogies to try to explain some of the basics of security, because those are areas where a lot of people still fall down.
Well, along those lines, you wanted to talk about the growing complexity of the cybersecurity market, which is I thought was very interesting topic. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. As when you said you want to talk about that, I was like, that's actually, I haven't spent a whole ton of time thinking about that aspect specifically.
So there's various sort of angles about this, and it is quite a complex area as everything becomes digitized or connected to the internet and what have you. However, just because it's a complex problem or it's an issue that's complex to many people who work outside of security, they don't fully understand it. I don't think it necessarily means that the solutions that we apply need to be complex. We can apply some very simple, basic things to actually achieve, that 80-20 rule. Unfortunately, as a whole, as an industry, that's not something we're very good at. Just looking at the vendor landscape, for example, there's probably, I don't know, it's very difficult to get an accurate number, but there's over 3,000, say, like vendors that claim to be providing some form of security or cyber security or network security. Out of those 3,000, there's only about like 25 that are actually public.
Okay. So they're public companies. I got you. Okay.
They're public companies, yeah. And out of those public companies, you could probably count on one hand the ones that are like, have a big market capital. So like, proper big companies that, over sort of like 10 billion capitalization, like, like your Checkpoints, what have you, Palo Alto, what have you. You've probably got the similar, like, 3 to 5 mid, and then the rest are all just small or micro cap vendors. And that's out of 3,000. Then you look at the rest, and, as a buyer, I always implore people to say, look at the company that you're investing in, or the technology that you're looking to help you solve a certain problem, real or perceived. And, what is that company actually doing? Does that company look like it's actually building a solution to help you sell, or are they just trying to get you on their slide that they can present to their next funding round to say, hey, look, we've signed up X bank, give us more money so we can burn through that, and then eventually someone will acquire us, or we'll just say, sorry, we couldn't make it work. So the problem with this like micro segment approach is that it just adds more and more complexity to the solution. So, you walk into any organization these days, you walk into a bank or any sort of enterprise, and you say, how many security products do you have? And they're like, we've got 50. How many do you actually use? Well, we probably only use 2 regularly. 10 of them are kind of like useful for audit or compliance purposes, and the others are just sitting on the shelf gathering dust. And, it's this level of complexity that then you say, well, why is your security budget increasing every year? Why is your security headcount increasing every year? And why are you still, moving backwards? And all of this lends itself to this complex mess. It's like, which is why, at least in the UK, when I've been looking at the sort of like CISO market, and I'm pretty sure it's similar to the rest of the world. CISOs are on like this merry-go-round where they go into an organization and they're there for about 3 years, 2 to 3 years, and then just as things get really complex, they'll hop over to the next organization because, hey, let's start over from scratch rather than to try to untangle the mess that the organization has found itself in. So, we find there's a lot of value in, just consolidating your technology stack, your security stack, starting from, just the basics. And, I think the market overestimates how ready we are for future technologies. It's kind of like this Silicon Valley thing that, everything's great today, where, and so let's look for that next thing. Stuff like VR, it's, as an outside example, it's still like 5 years away, 10 years away. It's not really like, mainstream. It's not embedded today. So that's not something that, we should be focusing on now. And that's the same thing with like machine learning or artificial intelligence or all this other stuff. It's there, but it's not quite here yet. It's still a few years out, and we just end up like confusing the issue too early and too soon.
Okay, so I disagree with you on multiple points. So let's
go for it.
Well, let's start with the consolidation and having too many vendors, and I think. Well, I agree, and in the part that I agree with is I think that the inclination of many consumers of security products is to go acquire technology to solve a problem when you haven't solved the fundamental issues in your network security architecture that can be solved without much help from vendors, right? These are things like policy and process, defining where your sensitive information is, who accesses it, and securing Active Directory, securing your web stuff and putting in SDLC. Like a lot of those are just logistics problems that I agree, Javvad, that you can solve a lot of those problems without vendors. Where I think that the newer technologies and some of that you mentioned, artificial intelligence, machine learning, well, I think it's largely a buzzword today. I think by going out and getting some of these newer vendors, what I hope people adopt is, well, yeah, I've got my house in order as best I can, and I need some of these innovative tools to help fill the gaps in some of my exposures. And that's what I hope is the strategy, but I think what you're speaking to is it's not today, right? But I do see organizations that do adopt that strategy, and while they're in the 3%, right? They're like, yeah, we went through and we locked our stuff down, and now we're like, hey, I want to check out this brand new vendor, bring their product in because it helps me with these other exposures that inevitably, as things change so rapidly in my environment, they help me keep up on it.
And that's cool. And I think the key point you made there is that's the minority.
It is, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And I think one thing that's really changed in the landscape in the last 10, 15 years is that whereas this only used to be a big company problem, now it's an every company problem, far more so. Companies are just completely dependent on their digital setup and infrastructure, and they're born in the cloud, and that's where they run. So the impact of any attack, and the attacks are more indiscriminate. And everyone holds some form of data. So when you look at a lot of the business models, it's like sign up here, register here. We'll capture some user data, a login ID, a password, this, that, the other. So even if they're a small kind of company, they're still a valid target. There are some really good companies, like you said, that are quite mature and they're getting better. But it's like that sort of 90% of the market that still needs a lot of catching up to do, and they really struggle even with the fundamentals because they're more, they've got a business to run.
Yeah, and I think on the C-level executive, Javvad, I hope that they're not bouncing around as often as you've observed. I think there's some fantastic CISOs out there that are really pushing the envelope, and I hope that, and they communicate in their own forums all the time, and I hope they learn from the ones that are really kind of leading the space in that they want to go to others in the organization and say, look, I don't want to come here and make you do something. I want to make your job easier, make your job better, make you more efficient at your job. And in doing that, they're providing security. Now, they're going to need products to do that, right? But I hope they make the right decisions in bringing in the right products to help others in the organization do their jobs better. And oftentimes when I'm asked by various individuals, what's our number one criteria for evaluating this new technology that just got an acronym, about a year ago? And I'm like, look, it doesn't matter what the new acronym is. What matters is, can you go to the other or business units in your organization and say, look, how do I make your job better? And
how do I make your job easier?
How do I make your job easier, right? And if they say, well, I need to do this, that, and the other thing, and you go acquire technology to help with that, that's a win to me. That's your number one criteria. Does it help me solve the problem? And one of the problems is, how do I make the Windows administrator, the network administrator, how do I make them better at their jobs and get their jobs done? And when you do that, security is just a natural progression from that.
Yeah, and I think that's the area that it takes that time and it takes that personal approach. So you need to find out what the problem is from the business before you go out trying to solve it, rather than here's a solution and let's go to the business and try to find the answer. It kind of reminds me of the example of how skyscrapers actually started getting built, and it was actually because someone was able to design safety brakes on lifts, on elevators. So elevators were really untrustworthy. If the rope broke, everyone would fall to their doom. But someone designed the sort of struts so that if the rope broke, the elevator would stop. It was a safety feature. And once they demonstrated that and it works, people had confidence in the elevator. So they said, okay, now we can build our skyscrapers as high as we want, because we've got elevators that can take people up and down and they're safe. And I think it's that kind of mentality that security leaders need to adopt, in a way, looking at their business and say, okay, the business wants to build the skyscraper. What do they need in order to do that? Because people aren't going to walk up and down those stairs. They want to use some technology or something. How do we make it safe?
Yep.
Yeah, so what you're saying is if they adopt endpoint protection, people can click on whatever they want.
and to Paul,
Totally messing with you.
to that elevator metaphor, I was in a building recently that you get in the lobby and you get in the elevator and you.
And if there's two people in the elevator, everyone knows who passed
farted.
gas.
Right,
That's
who farted. My friends, I can smell a lie like a fart in an elevator. What movie is that from? But no, you get in the elevator and you go up 40 floors. And you get out of the elevator and you walk around the corner and you get in a different set of elevators. And you go up another 30 floors. And you get out of that set of elevators, you walk around the corner, and you get in another set of elevators. So there's 3 distinct sets of elevators to get
You
to
hang
the
out in
entire
like
building.
the penthouse suites, huh?
Sometimes.
Interesting.
Sometimes.
So speaking of the complexity, I want to get your take on security orchestration, something that I'm starting to see. And I actually got to spend some time with a new security vendor that's doing some of that. And I'm really hopeful. I mean, I'm kind of optimistic, but I'm like Jack Daniels, like balance, right? I'm more optimistic than Jack, which isn't saying much. But I've got some optimism, right? And I'm like, this can really help because I think, to your point, we're adopting all this technology and making security really complicated. But even if we pare that down just a little bit, and we have these new vendors that are newer vendors, I think, that are coming in and saying, well, you can hook some stuff together. And there's some really smart and easy ways to do that. You don't have to be the world's best, programmer to be able to tie these things together and make something that's really customized to you. That's really good. What's your take on somewhat simplifying security by tying very specific vendor solutions together?
I think that's definitely a great approach, and I think that really is needed, and definitely we're seeing a lot more of that in the marketplace. You just have to look on the consumer side and see, say, something like if this then that, which is kind of like the same principle. It just makes it really easy to connect your services together, and it's really easy to create a recipe. Anyone can do it. So if we can take that principle and apply it to security and say, hey, if you know what you want, to happen when certain events happen or when certain alarms fire or under these conditions, then take these actions. I think it can really help, streamline that down. A lot of it really comes down to how well the vendors actually provide that functionality, what format it's in, and how much effort the orchestration product has to do first to normalize the data or get it into a format that it can communicate. But I think that the basics are definitely there for the large part. It's not really that difficult. The effort part on behalf of the companies are really creating those playbooks to say, okay, what do we want to happen under what situations, and where do we want it to be fully automated? Where do we want some manual intervention? But we're definitely seeing a lot more of this, and I think that the more this kind of thing happens, it's like more aspects can become transparent, and it'll lessen the burden for sure.
It's also interesting on the topic of complexity, and I know others on the show are going to jump on this. It's one of my favorite subjects, and if you relate it specifically to Windows systems, for example.
Dude, how are we going to tie this to porn?
We'll get there. But
because you said it was related to one of your favorite subjects.
That is what I mean. So Windows systems, right? I think much of the complexity that we have in our networks today, if we look at Windows-based networks that all of us are familiar with here, and we've talked about this, but I love this subject. It's complex because we've been implementing this technology for 20 years, and we have to support all those legacy technologies. And when you look at a technology like Active Directory that's in 90% of the organizations today, there's a lot of complexity that exists largely to support legacy stuff. So when we start applying security, which requires us to configure stuff in a certain way, limit, restrict, or turn off things, we can't. Those things can then be turned back on or introduce new problems. That, our environments by itself have introduced complexity that there are lots of vendors that now are offering solutions to help us deal with that complexity, which is making things more complex. So, like, how much of the complexity can we take out of the equation if we just fix that problem of legacy systems, which, of course, isn't easy in everyone's environment?
Yeah, and so I was speaking to a good friend of mine who's a CISO here at a large bank, and it's something he's been struggling with for a number of years. I mean, he's struggling. He's been making progress, but it's been very slow progress because it's really a business sort of challenge to get them to agree to move away from something that it's not just legacy stuff. He was saying it's also a lot of just custom stuff that's started off life as a spreadsheet, and before you know it, it's stuff has been bolted on like Frankenstein, and it's running the entire sort of like banking treasury department or something like that. And there is no tool to like really replace it. So it's not just a legacy problem; it's the problem that there's nothing to replace it. So they're having to buy products to sort of like mitigate. Again, it's like risk mitigation often increases the complexity, because you're saying, hey, let's just throw in another firewall and just close down these ports, open up these ports, and that will solve the problem. So from a risk mitigation perspective, that works, but it's completely at odds with the complexity, which introduces security. So I think it's like, when you look at it just with the security lens, it's quite an easy decision. But when you take into the business factors and the risk factors, it's that's where all the scales start going a bit out of balance.
Joff, Carlos, questions along this topic area?
No, I was interested in the AI comments. Actually, this is sort of rolling back a little bit, but there's been an interesting thing happening in the AI space in that is while you can deploy artificial intelligence algorithms to do heuristic sort of work in the InfoSec space, it is possible to poison the classification algorithm side of that and get those algorithms pointed in the wrong direction. And that's the part that concerns me about the maturity of taking artificial intelligence approaches, in that you can more or less attempt to train the AI algorithms into bad behaviors. And so I think it's going to get interesting as we go forward in terms of the attack vectors that come across with respect to AI-based solutions.
Yeah, and I think it was possibly Davi Otonaima that gave a talk at B-Sides Vegas, was it, last year? It was about the Tesla crash and the automated software, but he gave some really good examples around AI and how there's that bias that can be introduced into it in forms of learning. So, there's some really good Google examples that were like, if you do a search for what's an attractive female, and you'd always get a certain type of female come up, which was obviously the trainer's bias towards what an attractive female should be, or an ideal female should look like, or what does like the alpha male look like, and it comes up with a certain, or a good husband look like. So these things all come in, and I think that's a very real danger in security. So the way the implementation, it's like it should be very carefully managed and probably done in small sections to very specific use cases before the time is right to release it onto the masses.
I think also training the humans is also a bad thing. And I think about when I was in healthcare many years ago, I was responsible for managing WebSense. And because of the nature of the environment, we weren't allowed to block anything. You had to let everything pass and inspect everything later. And and there was a zero tolerance policy for adult content at this facility. So every morning we'd get a report that said, hey, all these people surf for porn. And you could tell right away by the URL that it was a pop-up ad or some advertisement that was being loaded via page. You could tell.
And in healthcare, I think we've talked about in the past, Larry, like they're browsing for adult material, but it's not
right
pornographic in nature.
Right, which is why we couldn't turn that on.
Like someone's legit,
boobs.
like Google searching for like
boobs
this
and,
condition that has to do with like private parts or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
which is why we were argued that we can never turn it on to block some of the stuff because
like my wife works in the medical field. Believe me, she tells me stories.
Looking at the alerts, not the blocks, the alerts, you could tell by institutional knowledge after looking at 7 or 8 of these things and even more that this URL is clearly a pop-up ad.
And you have
it's
to
an ad.
Closely inspect the content.
No. Well,
no, you don't want to do that. People think that like, oh, that must be great.
That was
like,
my,
no,
that was
it's
my,
not great. It's horrifying.
That was my job to inspect all of those, and I'm thoroughly convinced no one in that organization could actually find good porn on the internet. But that's a different story. But the fact is that I was training myself to realize that URLs of a certain format were in fact benign and didn't have to action upon them. And I was training my system to ignore those. And potentially I could have been generating false negatives during all that time. So it's not just about the software, it's about the humans too.
Right. Something about Google searching for testicles the size of grapefruits or something.
Just saying. We keep going back to the old recommendation that we typically give, which is learn your stuff, learn how to do it well, then just fill in the gaps with product. We're still seeing the same error always. Like they don't invest in training people. They don't invest in using properly the stuff they have. Then everybody wants to fill in supposed gaps with product, and they don't even include the training on the product itself.
Yeah, well, that's a very good comment, Carlos, because nobody can truly replace the contextually aware human. The challenge, even with AI algorithms, as best you can develop them, they still have very little context of that environment. And once you get an in-depth knowledge of the environment, and I think certainly as Larry was saying, intuitively what is okay versus what is something that you need to chase after, and that's unfortunately that's human effort in the end.
Well, and the way I see it is managerial failings and that we see nowadays. And I've seen in organizations, hey, we're going to get this new business accounting software, and you see the people in finance, oh, let's send everybody to training. Oh, let's make sure they have the books. Here comes IT, and we go like, oh, we're deploying this new version of Windows, or we're deploying new routers and stuff, and they go like, yeah, but you're a techie, you're supposed to know that stuff somehow. Via osmosis, you touch the book or you touch the piece of gear, and all of a sudden you learned it. And I see that problem in many organizations where management will pay for training for what they see as business critical, but the IT security side, they still fail to see it as business critical and don't put that investment in the best resource, which is the people itself.
Well, that actually comes full circle, I think, just to make one comment on that, Paul. If management of companies don't see security as business critical, that means that I think a lot of the security people have not done their job in terms of partnering with the various business units to actually get the message across that security is indeed part of your pipeline. It is indeed part of the actual operation of producing the widgets or whatever the company is engaged in, and it is a critical piece. And I think that's if you look at a CISO, that is one of their largest tasks, I think, is actually engaging with the business units and actually convincing them that security needs to be part of that process.
What I find interesting is when I look in various areas of the security programs for larger organizations, especially, where I see people doing like the best jobs at security is when they've looked at a problem, they've identified a couple of vendors that can give them, pieces of the puzzle, but they've written their own software coupled with a process, coupled with people to then solve that problem. I see that in vulnerability management. I see that in detecting IOCs and incident response. like the companies that are the best, and I think those ones that Javvad, we were saying like are in that 3% or whatever, like they're at least portions of their security program are just. I even see people, organizations doing their own machine learning, and having great success at that. So, like, at what level? Like, so how does that change how we evaluate vendors, Javvad?
What was the question in there? Sorry, I
Stump the expert. Challenge accepted.
What you were saying.
Yeah, if you develop your own software that is just basically using vendor technologies for pieces of the puzzle and incorporating that into your own software and processes and people, like how does that change how you evaluate vendors? Or does it?
If you're that mature and that good that you're developing your own sort of like machine learning and processes and everything, and you understand your environment like that, you can probably do far more for yourself than a vendor ever could. You've created something that's specifically tailored for your environment, and you've made it with more love and attention. You've made all the features that you actually need. There's no redundant features in there. There's nothing that you're worried about. Will it be a vulnerability or not in the future or what have you? So then you probably know more than the majority of people trying to sell you a product anyway. And that's not a knock on salespeople at companies. It's just like the reality is like, the engineers aren't the one doing the selling a lot of the time. So I'd say they're probably in a better position to understand it than the vendor, and they understand their organization, and they're the ones who can really teach the vendors and everyone else a lot about how they do things.
One of the other things you wanted to talk about, Javvad, was communicating outside of the tech bubble. And I think that's really important. Mm-hmm. I've certainly touched upon that in my most recent talk about IoT technologies and how we need to start talking outside of the echo chamber. I truly believe Josh Corman's done a great job of that. I got a chance to catch up with him recently, as many of our listeners know, at Source Boston. What are your thoughts on ways in which ourselves and everyone listening to this show and watching the show can talk outside of the tech bubble, other than being excited that Dave Kennedy is on the news, which is awesome in its own right. But that's just Dave. How come the rest of us approach the level of Dave?
Don't get to not wear pants on the news.
I mean, yeah. and Dave has awesome shoes lately, which, not all of us can be that stylish.
Serious hacking day.
That's right.
No. Dave certainly sets a very, very high benchmark for that. No, we can only aspire to be as good as him someday. But
at a lot of things.
In many ways, absolutely. But I think for the masses, we live in a great time where the tools are available for absolutely everyone. So you can sit at home and with something as simple as your cell phone and a laptop, you can probably do as much as what marketing agencies or communication companies could do 10 years ago. It was restricted to them. I mean, even your show is a great example of the democratization of how you can get some equipment, you can put in the time, and you've got distribution channels. You can reach like tens of thousands of listeners, huge audience, and you have huge influence through that way. I mean, the four primary things people can do just sitting around is like, if you look at the common apps, and social media is a great way to just gauge what mediums are out there. You have writing, so you can blog, you can write articles, you can email people stuff, information, and anywhere. There's photos like Instagram is like, Snapchat, those kind of things. They're really, really big. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't use Instagram. Probably people my age, your age, working in tech won't use something like that. But it's another medium that a lot of other people use. So, is there a way maybe you're better at photography? Or is it audio? Like
I'm awesome at like taking selfies and stuff. I should probably use Instagram more. I have really long arms. So.
Yeah, I've got about 3 selfie sticks, and everyone hates me for them whenever I go on holiday.
You can't use them at Disney World. Don't try and bring them to Disney World.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're banned at Disney. They confiscate
Disney.
that. They also confiscate your Flask. I mean, not that I know.
Why would they confiscate your Python web application?
I don't know.
I don't understand.
I was very confused.
They've never confiscated my Python, let me tell you.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Look,
It's only because they couldn't find it. Oh!
Look, if you're not talented enough to be able to take your own selfie, then why the hell do you need a bloody selfie stick?
Hey! Our guest has 3 of them. Ixnay on the Elfie stick A.
Yeah.
I got a selfie stick too, Joff.
I'm sorry. You got a selfie stick? Where is it?
That's right.
It's in his pants.
It's attracted to your Python, so just saying.
Wow.
That got dark quick.
Yeah, I'm not going there.
Smart move,
That's not
Carlos.
what the selfie stick said. Anyway, back to whatever we were doing.
That's the beauty of it. We have no idea what we were just doing. What were we talking about?
I think we were selfie sticks in Disney, but I don't know how we
Got there.
actually segued there.
Wow.
Because that was
Instagram.
the weirdest
Instagram.
thing
You know, that's a
Okay,
good
yeah,
point, though.
yeah,
I should
yeah,
get on my
I got
Segway
it.
with my selfie stick
Yes.
and take pictures of my Python, just to bring it full circle. Javvad, have you answered the 5 questions on Security Weekly?
No, what are the 5 questions? I'm blissfully ignorant of them, and I'm now scared as to why I asked that.
I'm going to ask you 5 random questions. There's no need to be scared. Well, maybe. So are you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly?
No.
Okay,
Perfect.
good. Perfect. 3 words to describe yourself.
Playboy, billionaire, philanthropist, almost.
Oh, I love that.
See, but with your accent, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Des and Troy.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Ooh, what would the title be?
It's a good title. I like that. Actually.
That's an acceptable answer, really. Yeah.
I'm not a security expert. I just play one on YouTube.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
Second.
Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise?
Damn.
Van Damme will do. Yeah.
I hear Angelina Jolie's single nowadays.
That's what I heard.
That's a really
I was
tough one.
hoping.
See,
I was
everyone
hoping for
I'm
the
thinking of is
Angelina
like
Jolie. We
my
have.
age or younger than me now, and that would be really weird to think of them as parents. So I'm trying to think of older people, and
Doesn't
now they're
matter.
really old, wrinkly, dead people in my head.
This is your fantasy, man. You can have it be whoever you want.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As he gets a faraway look in his eye.
And you know, this is 2017. I mean, you could have 2 moms or you could have 2 dads.
That's right. They can be in pornography, out of pornography, like whatever. It's cool.
You know, I mean, I would have been okay if Brangelina had adopted me along with their 7 other adoptees when they were an item.
So you're going with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. You've restored my faith in humanity, Javvad. That's awesome. Right. We haven't had that answer in so long. I'm glad to hear it come back. It is our most popular answer for that question. I don't know why.
At least the Angelina Jolie part is the most popular.
I think that geeks are fixated on boobies. That's what it is.
Well, and she was in Hackers, too.
And you got to see her boobies in Hackers. So I rest my case. Or I rest Joff's case for him.
Well, I mean, that's titties in England. I just want to be culturally, sensitive.
Thank you. No.
Javvad, where can people find your writings and videos on topics related to security?
If you go to my blog, I just noticed it's on my screen behind me.
I know. Yeah, I saw that back there.
vv4d.com. That's the website. That's also my Twitter ID.
How convenient that you just noticed that. Oh, my word. I can't believe that.
Yeah, gee, that is just like, oh,
it's uncanny.
Let me have some of my refreshing Volvic water. That really hits the spot.
You got this down, Javvad. Thank you so much for appearing on Security Weekly. It was nice chatting with you. We hope to see you soon. Hopefully come over to this side of the pond.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We're taking a short break. Come back with our technical segment for this evening with Farouk Mavatuna from NetSparker. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.